Hey there everyone, if you've been doing the daily missions every day to get your Aura Vitality, you'll be getting very close now to getting 100, meaning you can boost your first ever monster. So I thought this was the right kind of time to put out a guide for which monsters should you be HP boosting. Now the purpose of this guide video is to sort of objectively look at it, figure out where the game's going, what you should be doing with this decision. However, it is ultimately yours, your decision to make, and you can HP boost whatever you like. Your most favourite monsters, that's fine. Probably it's not going to make a massive difference, but if you want to do it strategically and get the best benefit out of HP boosting, that's what this video's going to cover. Again, it's also my opinion, so I may be wrong with some stuff, I may change my opinion later on, but I've thought about this quite a bit and kind of come to certain conclusions about what is best to HP boost. So with that said, where do you get Aura Vitality? Well, it's pretty simple. There's only two places in the game. One of them is from the daily missions. You can see here, I've got a screenshot. This was actually when it first came out, so the requirements have been reduced slightly. We don't need to use quite so many tickets. It varies a bit from day to day. Basically, it's a bunch of PvE stuff. You just do some PvE and you'll get your Aura Vitality, and it's 1 towards the 100 that you need. So that is kind of the main way. The other way you can do it is from the Super Epic Monster Bond quest. Getting to level 80 on any of those gives you 1 ore. So that can be farmed. I would say it's not efficient to farm it unless you're a very high hero rank. The reason being is it costs gems to refill your tickets to farm it, and it's just quite expensive to get 100 of them, as well as like a lot of time. If you do it manually, you can do it faster, but like, to be honest, that's a long time playing manually. If you do it on auto battle, if you can get the right kind of team to do it, takes like roughly 3 hours per one, so it's like 300 hours of auto battle you're talking about, plus also, loads of gems to refill the tickets. At high hero rank, it kind of pays for itself, and by high hero rank I mean like literally close to 300. So it's something which some late game players can do, but I would not recommend it to most people. Also because there's only like a maximum of 250 you can get out of that, and like I said, it will take ages to do. Ultimately, what we get is 3.5 HP boosts per year. Now the developers have said they do not plan on releasing Aura Vitality anywhere else in the game. The idea is it is a benefit for long-time players, something they can work towards over time, and they can boost their favourite monsters, or whatever it is that they want to boost to make these particular monsters stronger. And so it's just something fun in there for people to work towards and be able to, customize in their own way. It's not something which they're planning on releasing as rewards in all different events to just mean that older players have a massive advantage over newer players. So that's probably what we're looking at, is 3.5 monsters getting HP boosted a year, if you're playing every day and, all that kind of stuff. Like, this is for consistent gameplay. Also, another slight aside is the developers have agreed that if they ever nerf a monster, nerf it in any way, like just a very small nerf or anything, they will allow you to refund your Aura Vitality if you've HP boosted into it. This is something which we haven't actually had to see yet, but it's something which they've agreed to because they know this is a big investment and they don't want people to hesitate boosting a monster because, it might be their most powerful one and they're thinking it's probably going to be nerfed, but I want to HP boost it. So, they HP boost it and then it gets nerfed and then they're like, I wasted my ores. So, you'll always be allowed to refund your ores if you've HP boosted something that gets nerfed. So going back to the 3.5 monsters that we're boosting each year, well, in a team, we have roughly 14 real monsters. Like, you can have up to 16, but ultimately, because of team cost restrictions, it's usually about 14 real monsters in it. 3.5 means it will take 4 years to boost them all. To have a fully boosted team will take 4 years, and of course we're using different monsters in different teams. Over the course of those 4 years, you're going to get new monsters. You're going to, new monsters will come out into the game, which you'll get, and you'll want to HP boost them. So realistically, at any one time, you're probably only going to have a few monsters boosted in your team, and that's where we're heading. Maybe years down the line, people can have fully HP boosted teams, if I can say that. But, the game's probably not going to stick around that long. So this is very much a case of it's not going to really reshape the game and how things are going on. However, I think if you can make clever decisions about what you're HP boosting so that you could have, say, 5 of your team being HP boosted, it can make a significant difference in battles as long as you pick the right monsters. So also because it's such a long-term thing, I think we've really got to think about the long term in terms of what you're picking, because if you pick something that's like very strong in the current meta, well, it may not be a few years down the line. So you've really got to take into account like things that don't rely on the meta and the way design is going. Now, I've very heavily put forwards in videos for the last like year or two, and also talked about it on the forum and on the Discord, how the way design is going is it's making everything really tanky. So we've got a lot more monsters these days with high defense. It's very obvious as well, we're getting lots of things with stats boost, defense boost and stuff. Now there's a defense cap, so it's not going to just keep going more and more and more and more, where like things just keep getting tankier. At least I hope not. We have things like Carmilla and Botanduji, which do go above the defense cap, but ultimately the defense cap's kind of the limit. And obviously we've got piercing moves as well, which can kind of counteract the defense. But ultimately things are getting tankier. And so if you boost any monster which does not deal enough damage to deal with tanky monsters, probably in like 2 or 3 years, it will not be very good at all. Bear in mind also that HP boost makes things tankier. So in a few years, when we're going to be facing HP boosted monsters, those monsters that don't do enough damage will not be anywhere near as good. So we can't really look at monsters which don't do enough damage. We've really got to account for that. And the amount of damage that they need to be dealing to HP boosted monsters is 6,000. As you can see with Carmilla here, this is an HP boosted Carmilla. She's got 6,100 HP. She's got lower speed, which means she's got higher health. So that's on the slightly higher side. But the average kind of HP you can expect from HP boosted mythics is 6,000. And it's going to be like 5,000 on legendaries. Another thing to be considering is that because we're looking long term and stuff, mythics are accessible now. And over the years, you're going to be picking up a lot of mythics. I think, mythics are generally stronger than legendaries. In the long term, everyone's going to be playing with mythics, and you need to kind of be at that power level. So picking legendaries which are like pretty good because they can kill other legendaries, well, they aren't going to be very good when, everyone's using mythics. So I think you pretty much got to limit your choices to mythics. And another point, which I think is not very obvious when you look at this, but this is the thing I've kind of come to after looking at this for a very long time, and thinking about it for a very long time, is I believe that if you were to pick tanky mythics, which are very strong and stuff, and you HP boost them, you will basically be able to create a team that outclasses anyone not doing that. So if you've been playing with a lot of mythics in recent times, I know not many people playing the game have a bunch of mythics, but I have reached the point where like I've got more than 10, and so I can play with, and I build teams where I'm using a few of these mythics, and there's definitely times where I come up against weaker or newer players who don't have access to these monsters and aren't normally playing against them, and they use monsters which just can't really kill mine because they just don't do enough damage. And this will be even more the case when you've got HP boosted mythics. So I think if you can put together tanky HP boosted mythics, you will find that kind of puts you in another level compared to everyone else. And that is the main benefit you can get from HP boost. So yeah, just to fully clarify there, I think that if you can get tanky HP boosted mythics, build teams with them, and kind of focus on HP boosting those, because you can only HP boost some monsters, you'll be able to create a team which a lot of the player base, a lot of the people that you normally meet, will really struggle to beat just because you're outclassing them with stats. And that puts you in a much better position for then doing better overall. So with those things considered, I think that really kind of makes a checklist of criteria to meet for any particular monster that you want to HP boost. So let's kind of detail those, just to make it very clear, clarify it. This is a guide, so that's what we're going to do. So the first one is we're limiting our choice to mythics. Basically, just mythics as the main thing. There will be some legendaries, but you're mainly looking at mythics here. The other thing is high defense or stats boost monsters. So ones that naturally tank already very well, and then with the HP boost on top of that, they're going to tank even better. for the reason I said, there's a lot of monsters that just won't be able to do enough damage, and so it will make those, you can basically ignore them in the battle because they're not going to be doing enough damage to your monsters. Slight side note, I do this already when I meet a monster like Infernocorn. Infernocorn's a very strong monster, but if you're playing with Mythics, Infernocorn does not one-shot them, and then, even though it's piercing and stuff, like, it is a lot weaker than it would normally be. So, yeah, you'll meet situations like that. Monsters like that you can just ignore because they won't be doing enough to your tanky monsters. The next thing is they have to be very strong. This is kind of obvious. You can go for like your favourites, but very strong monsters you're going to do better with. And so, if you're picking strong tanky mythics, like, that's just kind of like, I think it makes sense to do it like that. The next thing is they need to do 6,000 damage. So I mentioned this before. This is to make sure you can kill HP boosted mythics, and importantly, 6,000 damage to ones with high defense. Because, if other people are doing this to high defense monsters, you need to be doing 6,000 to them, not to just like the squishy ones. Or they need to be a moveset which doesn't really care about damage. So if it's a full support monster, or it disables the enemy team with sleep and that kind of stuff, like, it doesn't really do damage moves. It doesn't matter about the damage then, really. Then you're just making this good support monster tanky. And then as a bonus thing, if the monster has a large impact on its first turn, or it benefits from surviving, then by making it survive better, it's going to be doing a lot better than that. So that is a slight caveat, because to actually hit this criteria, there's a lot of monsters which they kind of hit it but not quite, and so something that can like be a deciding factor, or make certain monsters worth boosting is they will have a really big impact on their first turn. The other caveat that I would say is, because like I said, it's really hard to hit all the criteria. Actually, the one which you could maybe pull out is being super tanky. So you don't really want to go with like full attack mythics, but the monster doesn't necessarily have to be super tanky. What's more important is that it can deal 6,000 or more damage. Because if you imagine a scenario where like everyone's using these tanky, buff mythics, if you are using monsters which cannot kill them, they're too easily ignored. But if your opponent's team can kill your monsters whether they're tanky or not, it's less important your monsters being tanky. So while what I've set out as the criteria is the ideal thing, I would say the next step down from that would be to go for monsters which can deal really high damage. They're very strong monsters. They meet this criteria, they're just not as tanky as they could be. So I don't really have examples of this coming up, but there are some monsters in the game which are very strong monsters, and definitely monsters that you want to be using. They're just they haven't got as high defense as other things, but they deal enough damage to one-shot anything, and those are still reasonably good targets for HP boosting. So these are this is the criteria and the main points that I wanted to say with regards to what you should be HP boosting. And now we're just going to be, for the rest of this video, talking through examples to kind of elaborate further and better explain what I'm thinking when I'm looking at monsters and what I'm picking on to boost. So first we've got Carmilla. This is a pretty obvious choice. It's it's the strongest monster in the game right now, and it even has a defense buff. So it just gets it really benefits from that 1,000 extra HP. Carmilla is all about surviving over 90% HP, getting a massive defense buff with that. Having 100 more HP for that is just insane. She takes basically like 1/10 of the damage that she normally does, so that extra 100 is like an extra 1,000 just to get her below the 90% threshold, and then you've also got the extra 900 for the rest of it. So very tanky already, just a huge benefit from making her even tankier. It's one of the big deals about her. So she's an obvious choice. Tanky mythic, very strong, doesn't care about damage so much because she's got Vigor Heartburst, Vigor Blood Bite does one-shot damage easily, Dual Confidence Strike, also strong move if she's at literally 100% HP. So yeah, very clear choice here, one of the best. Next one is Momo. So this is another very strong mythic, and as you can see, full defense mythic, even got Hold Ground, It's got high HP just because they, low speed. So super tanky. Like this is on the tankiest of tanky. She's got the chrono weakness, which is like one of the few ways to like easily deal with her. Although I say easily, even putting her to hold ground from that is not easy. So very, very tanky. And so making her even tankier is kind of ridiculous. She can also heal herself by switching from the stun counter to auto protect and back again as well. She can keep healing herself. So extremely tanky. Clearly benefit from that, but the key thing here is that she's also got Fast Breaker, which is a piercing 6,000 damage. So that will one-shot other tanky HP boosted mythics. So this is just like slam dunk, very clearly built for this, should be HP boosted, and will be one of the best monsters that's HP boosted. Clear choice. You can see here, it meets every criteria. Next one is Bastia. So Bastia doesn't really do damage, so we're not looking at the dealing 6,000 or more damage bit here. Instead, she does, where she benefits is disruption and healing. So the main thing about her is she's very, very hard to kill. This is literally the tankiest monster in the game, if you ignore stat boost stuff going on, because she's got the full defense. She's got the highest HP you can have, basically, and hold ground. So surviving even better than that and healing stuff is just going to be really, really good. In fact, Bastia is probably going to be amazing in teams with HP boosted monsters because she can be healing them. So, they're hard to kill, and well, they're even harder to kill when they're being healed up by Bastia. So yeah, like I said, doesn't matter about the damage, so that's not really a factor here. You're just making a really tanky monster that's very good, even tankier. This one is Sorrel. Now this one's more interesting. So this is not the tankiest of mythics, but it is, it's fairly good. It's got good defense, good HP and stuff. It's stealth on entrance, which makes it a little harder to kill. The key thing here is this meets the bonus category, which is it does a lot when it gets to its first turn. So the thing with Sorrel is that it does this baby conversion stuff, and then it can't be targeted directly. And obviously when it enters, there's no other baby, so it can be targeted and killed. And that little bit until the first turn is crucial for it to survive. It's why it's good with things like Desikian and stuff, which shield it one entrance. Or if you've got give turn monsters around, so you can give turn to it. But ultimately, it really needs to get to its first turn. And then when it gets to that turn, it can use baby conversion, and then it becomes really awkward to hit. And it can, start sweeping and all the rest of it. The babies don't do, they won't do enough to kill HP boosted mythics, but they do good damage. And then, the main thing here is the fact that the HP boost will help it survive to its first turn. And otherwise it does good damage. It will kill HP boosted mythics itself. It's a very strong mythic, so it's good enough. I would say this is one of the best monsters for HP boost, and gives you an example of one that's slightly different. It hasn't got the massive defense, hasn't got like piercing attacks and stuff, but the kind of other things that I would say meet the criteria. Next we've got Securilisk. So this is another example of a monster that doesn't care quite so much about damage. Now I would say that doing good damage with double bloodthirst after one kill is, does help, but to be honest, it's not brilliant anyway. What I'm talking about there is like in a meta where everyone's tanky and stuff, then the double bloodthirst with one kill is not really going to do much at all. But if it was in a meta where things were squishier, like in the past when this first came out, then it kind of factored in a bit. But yeah, to be honest, what this mainly does is support with Dreamworld and Stun Counter. Those passives are just very, very strong, and then they're all hypnotized on the first turn. So surviving to the first turn, it makes a big impact, and so it meets that criteria. And otherwise, it's a tanky monster that's got really powerful support. Dream Crush doesn't care about how tanky something is, because it just easily one-shots, and then Double Bloodthirst up to 2 kills is going to one-shot either way. So another great option for HP boosting. Next we've got Fiona. Now, some people might have guessed that I would put Fiona in this video because she's a personal favourite of mine. So she was going to get HP boosted probably anyway, but she's also a good target for this. So I will say the Double Drain Survivor is a damage move on her. It won't do enough to one-shot tanky HP boosted mythics, which is a slight downer on her. However, the key thing here is that she does have maximum defense herself. She also gets a defense buff from her passive, so she gets massive defense and putting 1000 more HP on her is going to help. It's actually slightly proportionately more because she's got lower HP than most mythics. But the key thing here is that she's already really tanky, and she will become even tankier with this. She will benefit from being tanky. Like being tanky is an important part of her moveset. And then she can support with Stealthy Accelerate. So you're not really building around her damage with a Double Drain Survivor when you use her. Instead, what you're doing is you're building around Stealthy Accelerate, or the, if you're doing something with her, it's like slowing the enemies with the Frozen Wave Plus. So the fact that she won't do enough damage to, this sort of theoretical meta where everything's really, really tanky, doesn't matter so much because you're not really playing her for that. So she's not as good as the monsters that we've looked at before for HP boosting, but she is up there, and I'd say, most of the monsters which you'll be choosing and stuff, they're more kind of in this realm, where there's some justification for it, but they don't meet all the criteria. And then we're going to look at Wilhelmina. So this is one that's I would say a step down from Fiona in terms of how good she is for HP boosting. So Wilhelmina, the main thing about her that you really want is for her to survive till team turn. And so she's, relatively quick, relatively slow, kind of in that middle ground really, but with high defense and hold ground. And she'll get a turn, she'll use Slayer Bane, and then she'll team turn on the next turn. So her being tanky will really help get to that team turn. It's definitely a strong benefit. It's going to be good. And if she can get to Blood Crush, well then, her damage is solid. She can just be one-shotting things, and being tankier helps. When I've used Wilhelmina, I found her very strong with Bastia, because Bastia can heal Wilhelmina up. And, Wilhelmina's tanky, like I said, so being able to heal her up and then be killing things very reliably with Blood Crush in the long run is very strong. Where Wilhelmina doesn't fit into the criteria is Wilhelmina's damage is not brilliant. She's got lower attack, and Slayer Bane is not a high damage move. Retribution also not an especially high damage move. When we're talking about a monster with lower attack. So Wilhelmina's damage is a little lackluster, and Fast Fury is stronger. It also hits monsters which have naturally lower HP because they are higher speed, and that's what you get is lower HP. So Fast Fury is pretty good, but I think that against HP boosted monsters, Fast Fury won't quite do enough, especially against the tankier ones. So her damage will be lackluster. And for that reason, I don't think she's amazing to HP boost, but I do think she's pretty good. And, like I said, if you actually really strictly look at the criteria, there aren't too many monsters which fit it. So Wilhelmina is probably, just outside that kind of ideal window, but is still pretty good. So yeah, she's another kind of option, and I wanted her as an example of something which, this has some of the aspects of what you ideally want to HP boost, but it doesn't have them all, and so you may not necessarily rush to HP boost this one. So in the realms of legendaries, I did say this would just be mythics, but I wanted to show some, a few legendaries just as examples for things to consider, and we've got Skull-Open Dragon here. Now, Skull-Open Dragon is not one of the top legendaries. You may have noticed from the mythics I picked out, I did pick out top mythics, and, you want to be going for those strong top monsters that also meet the criteria that you're looking for. That's the ideal thing. But here's some examples of monsters which would actually fit into this pretty well. So Skull-Open Dragon, its Death Bite moves, they kill things perfectly fine. It does not matter about how tanky they are, so that in terms of damage, we're perfectly fine. Scalebreaker is also piercing, so this kills things perfectly fine. So there's no damage problem here at all for dealing with HP boosted tanky mythics. And then it itself has really high defense with a hardened carapace. So it's going to, sorry, actually it's a mobile carapace now, but anyway, it's going to be double defense when it's at high-ish HP. So it's actually a very tanky monster. It also heals itself when it uses the Death Bite move, so being tanky would be good. And this has the bonus criteria of if it can survive long enough, then it's very strong, because once this gets going, once it's got one kill and it can go through the Death Bite chain, that is super powerful. So if it can have HP boost to help it survive through that, it's going to do especially well. So this hits like all the criteria. It is just one of the ideal choices. It's just the fact that it may not be the most exceptional legendary or monster in the game, and it's not a mythic. But otherwise, this is the kind of ideal thing you're looking for. The next legendary we're looking at is Shadow Elm Fox. So this is another example of a monster which gets a defense buff. So it's very tanky. It's also got hold ground. It can't heal itself, but you could use this with healing. And, you know, if we're in this meta where, like, everything's tanky and stuff, healing is probably going to help out quite a bit. If you're, you know, if they're struggling to kill your monsters, healing them too is just going to make it even harder. So, yeah, with that stats buff, it's going to tank very well. Also, with the stats buff, it means it deals good damage. It doesn't deal especially good damage with Thundering Strike and Frozen Punch against really tanky stuff, but Flaming Blaze and Stone Missile will kill them very nicely. So I think this would work very well in a meta where everything's tanky, and making it tankier itself is going to be brilliant. Another one is Sturgeonidas. So this is just, you know, super tanky. It's got got full defense, and in terms of damage, Nullifying Strike will not be especially good against HP boosted stuff, but Union Attack is very strong. So you can use this with some other kind of aquatic monster, and as long as it's on high HP, it's not going to have any issue dealing with really tanky stuff. So yeah, it kind of fits in that. It's also you know, one of the best legendaries of the game. It's just super good. So probably if you're looking at legendaries, looking at boosted them, say you don't have like that many good mythics and nothing really going on there that you want to boost, well, Sturgeonidas is another great option. And lastly, we have Vixierid. So this is a really interesting one, I think, where as it uses moves, it loses HP. And there are a few mythics that do this kind of thing that I thought about talking about, but I decided actually Vixierid is a better example of it. So as it uses moves, it loses HP, which means that any HP boost you give to it is kind of like, you know, somewhat nullified, because the monster makes itself easier to kill, so making it hard to kill doesn't really, you know, matter so much. But the key thing here is that it really relies on getting to its first turn, and it has a massive impact on its first turn. And it is generally tanky to get to that first turn. You know, it's got camouflage, it's got high defense, it's got the punishment of single sleep revenge if it does get killed. But yeah, so it's hard to kill off before it gets to its first turn, and make it even harder to kill before its first turn will really help out. And then when it gets that turn, it, you know, puts something to sleep with the secret skill, and then it can also you know, kill something with Transient Bash or give turn or something like that. And the Transient Bash does enough damage. It deals like 12,000 damage to something at the defense cap. It easily one-shots. So, you know, it hits all the criteria other than being this weird thing of it will use up its HP to do moves. If you get Transient Bash, actually, it's not going to use up the HP. So you could argue that. But yeah, there are a few monsters in the game which do something like this. Orochi was another one I thought about talking about. Because it gives up its HP. It is a tanky monster that doesn't really care about the enemy's stats and stuff, so it can kill them off fine. So I thought about including it, but it removes its own HP to do some moves, which means that an HP boost to it wouldn't necessarily help out so much, but it does have a massive impact on the first turn, so it kind of comes under the same category. Yeah, so that's it for examples. I hope it's made everything clear to you about the kind of things to think about when looking to HP boost monsters, and otherwise those criteria. If you have any other opinions about what you should be HP boosting, I'd love to hear them, because this was mostly me thinking to myself. I did discuss it a bit with some friends, and they kind of agreed, but they didn't really think too much about it and engage in the conversation. So if you have other ideas, let me know. Otherwise, if you want to just boost your favourite monsters, go ahead, it's fine. Like I said, it's not really going to take over the game and shift the meta too much, because it's going to take so many years for us to HP boost enough monsters to do that. And as we use different teams, we're going to use different monsters in different teams, so you're not going to meet it too much, is what I'm thinking. I will try to specifically target monsters that I think I will be using lots, because I'll try to build a team as I've described in this video. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking on everything. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you in a video soon.